Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Laura, and in today's video I'll be talking about the basics of networking. Now, I'm not going to be spending my time talking about TCP, IP, or UDP protocols because I know very little about that, but I do want to talk about the most valuable asset that you have for your career, and that is your network. So your network is going to be incredibly valuable for you because it can help you land that very first internship, which is notoriously difficult, or it can help you get a senior or principal position 15 or 20 years down the line. When it comes down to it, networking is just all about who you know. In this video, I want to give you 4 tips that briefly cover why networking is important, as well as just some basic how-tos and nice-to-knows that you should know going into networking calls or networking meetings. Again, please take all my advice with a grain of salt because I'm not the source of truth, nor that I really know all that much about networking when it comes to the grand scheme of things. Hello, it is Editing Laura here, just jumping in before we get onto the video. I wanted to make a quick disclaimer that I feel like I misrepresented the purpose of networking a little bit in the overall process of this video. I feel like networking comes in a couple of different ways, so it can range from just wanting a casual chat and being their friend, all the way up to asking someone for a job referral, something of those sorts. So networking is definitely a sliding scale, and I feel like in this video I kind of represented it as only something that you do if you want to get a favor out of someone, but that's definitely not the only case. I think networking is a super powerful tool, and there are a lot of great opportunities to be discovered through networking, but definitely you don't have to be always hunting down a job, just network with someone. You can just take an interest in what someone does, network with them to learn from them, and call it a day. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video and that it gives you some guidance on how to start networking. So let's go ahead and get started. The first tip that I want to highlight is don't be afraid to make connections. I know that this can seem really obvious, but especially when you're coming in new to the industry, coming in new to school where you don't know anyone or you don't have an established network already, it's kind of that chicken and the egg problem of how do I establish a network if I don't already have an existing network. And to this, the best way to instantly gain a network, so to speak, is to join common interest groups that can help propel you forward a little bit. So for example, your company may have employee resource groups in which a lot of people there would be happy to help you out and connect with you. Or if you're in school, then there are plenty of clubs by affiliate interests that you can also start to connect with people in there. And there you go. Within a matter of minutes, you technically have a vast network of people that you can start to connect with, mingle with, and get to know. So this can kind of build up your basic knowledge of who you network with. But with a platform like LinkedIn, the world is really at your fingertips, and it's up to you to make smart connections and also make meaningful connections at the same time. You can add tons of random people that aren't in your industry and that also have no common interests with you, but that won't really get you far in terms of helping you later down the road or helping you build up your relevant network. Now back to the original point about not being afraid to make connections. It can feel pretty intimidating to reach out to someone cold without any introductions or network connecting you to. But really, the biggest thing that stops people from connecting and networking is fear. If you never connect with people out of fear, then you're never going to actually expand your network beyond who your immediate connections know, and you can really miss out on huge opportunities by not cold reaching out to someone. Most people are honestly really happy to connect with you and to hear from you as long as you can provide some sort of value to them. If you come in without preparation though, it can feel really easy to just waste 30 minutes of both your time and their time, and just a barrage of questions that don't really connect or have a solid line of thinking between them. The second tip I have is to connect with people that are in roles that inspire you or that you want to move towards. Most often, I find myself connecting with those who inspire me and push me to just be better. This can often take the form of someone who has a particular interest or passion that I'm interested in learning more about or that I'm starting to get into, and I'd like to learn from them, have them be a mentor, or something along those lines. You want to aim for a sweet spot between casting a wide net so enough people can respond and you hear back from them, but also not casting too wide of a net where you feel overwhelmed with the number of people that are responding to you, and now the pressure to set up one-on-ones or meetings with these people outside of your work hours. Another thing to note though is that it's really important to find people who can help be curve benders for you. I heard this term in a podcast I listened to recently, and basically curve benders are those people in your network that really do so much more for you than other people. For example, one of my mentors I would consider to be a curve bender because he really helped encourage me to go into the PM space and also just encouraged me to really follow my passions, and that had a huge influence in where I am today. And he's also helped connect me with a bunch of other people along the way as well. Your example of what a curve bender is might look a little bit different, but generally speaking, curve benders are just those people that do stand out a little bit more compared to other people that are in your network. I don't know if there's really a tipping point of how many curved benders can be in your life or how many curved benders you need to really rocket ship your career up there, but generally speaking, any curved bender is great to have, and you should feel very valued if you're providing the role of a curved bender to one of your mentees as well. 3 is to make sure that you're actually adding value to your connections. I alluded to this in the first tip, but what can you give back to the person you're talking with during the course of their time and incentivize them to actually spend that time talking with you? One common thing is asking for small favors so you kind of get your foot in the door. That way they can bring something back to you, and it's something that's a little bit more actionable than just barraging them with questions. I wouldn't disincentivize this. I don't think it's too much of an ask, especially if you're doing something like asking them to speak on a panel, but I would encourage you to just keep a fine balance. You don't want to be constantly asking them for favors over and over again when you're not actually giving anything back to them. It can start to feel like a pretty transactional relationship if you aren't actually contributing to the relationship, so keep that in mind when you're approaching someone else that you are asking for a favor from them. As a potential approach though to what you can provide, as a younger person, you're the up-and-coming perspective for the next launch of products. A lot of people really like to listen from people who might be new to the industry, new to the job, because you just provide them with some fresh perspective that they might not have heard in a while from some of their older employees. Otherwise though, maybe you have a shared interest or common goal, and you can come together and work on a project together that can help deepen that relationship as well. I think adding value is the most difficult thing and something that I also really struggle with a lot. Even though I have no problems reaching out to coworkers and just setting up one-on-ones, it can sometimes feel like I don't really have anything to add or contribute to the conversation beyond just setting up that meeting for us to chat and learn a little bit more about each other. And some of these more casual conversations in which you're not really asking for a favor, I think if you can really hitch on to common interests, that's the most viable talking point. Otherwise, you can kind of feel like you're talking to a dead wall, and that's just not fun for anyone on either side of the conversation. Otherwise, if you're just trying to expand professionally, then finding some sort of project or professional interest is probably going to be your best bet. Otherwise, if you're expanding professionally, then trying to find some sort of common professional interest or project is probably going to be your best bet. And fourth, the last tip I have is to go into your meetings with a focus. You probably sent a meeting request, an email, or a LinkedIn message, just briefly outlining your background, why you're interested in talking to them, and what your proposal is. Your proposal can be anything like going out to get food, getting a drink, etc., or just having a one-on-one meeting through Teams or Slack or something like that. Lead with your background, why you're contacting them, and what the ask is. Just to reiterate, your ask can be anything from a project proposal to a panel speaker to who knows what. Regardless, when you're going to the physical meeting itself, have a very clear idea of why you're meeting with this person and have that goal crystal clear in your mind as well. Tying everything together though, when you're going to the physical meeting, make sure you have your goal crystal clear in your mind. Why this particular person you've asked to do you a favor or why you've initiated a conversation with them, how can they add value to you, and then how can you add value to them. You also want to make sure that you're making the setup process as easy as possible for this person. But just make sure that they are not blindsided coming into the conversation and that they clearly know that you're asking for something from them if you are. There is of course a fine line of reading the room when it comes to the actual meeting and seeing how perceptive and open this person is when they're actually meeting with you. I won't be super prescriptive here because it's hard to, give advice that applies to everyone, but just read the room, make sure you're not coming off as asking for too much. And finally, at the end, I encourage you to celebrate your win. Whether that be you just expanded your network by one person, you talked to a vice president of some amazing company, or you finally got someone to be that panel speaker on that panel you're hosting for next week. Networking is really scary, and if you're unfamiliar, it can be really daunting. So pat yourself on the back for making that first step, and I encourage you to keep making these slow connections over time, and you'll see how big of a network you can really build. I know that this is a pretty general video, but I did want this to be a friendly introduction to networking that isn't specific to any field or industry. Let me know in the comments down below if you have anything specific that you'd like more clarity on, and I'd be happy to help if I can. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week for a brand new video. Bye.